Other distinct groups: Jewish people and women. Jews of Sephardic origin. Jews of Sephardic origin, also known as Sephardim, are Jewish people who trace their heritage back to the Iberian Peninsula, primarily Spain and Portugal. The term Sephardic is derived from the Hebrew word for Spain. Sephardic Jews have a distinct cultural and religious identity shaped by their historical experiences and traditions. Historically, Sephardic Jews thrived in Spain during the Golden Age of Jewish culture, which lasted from the 9th to the 12th centuries. However, their prosperity came to an end with the Spanish Inquisition in the late 15th century. The Spanish Inquisition aimed to suppress non-Catholic religious practices, leading to the forced conversion, expulsion, or persecution of Jews. Many Sephardic Jews were forced to leave Spain and Portugal, scattering across various regions including North Africa, the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire, and later the Americas. In 1964, they immigrated to the United States because they had been expelled from their countries of residence. Sephardic Jews have distinct customs, religious practices, and cultural traditions that differ from Ashkenazi Jews, who are of Central and Eastern European origin. They have their own liturgical traditions, music, language, Ladino, a Judeo-Spanish language, and cuisine. Sephardic Jewish communities have preserved their unique heritage throughout the centuries, adapting and incorporating local cultural elements from the regions they settled in. Sephardic Judaism follows the Sephardic liturgical customs and interpretations of Jewish law, halakha. While there are variations within the Sephardic community, some common practices include following the teachings of prominent Sephardic rabbis and scholars, such as the Shulchan Aruch, a comprehensive legal code. In recent times, many Sephardic Jews have migrated to other parts of the world, particularly Israel and the United States. Their cultural and religious traditions continue to be maintained and celebrated within their communities, contributing to the diversity of Jewish heritage and identity. It's important to note that the term Sephardic is sometimes used broadly to include Jews of North African, Middle Eastern, and other non-Ashkenazi origins. This expanded usage recognizes the diversity within the Sephardic world and encompasses a wider range of Jewish communities and traditions. Jews in the Soviet Union. In the late 1980s, there were significant changes in the treatment of Jews in the Soviet Union, particularly due to the policy of glasnost and perestroika introduced by Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. These reforms led to improved conditions for Jews, including increased religious freedoms and relaxation of immigration restrictions. As the treatment of Jews in the Soviet Union improved, U.S. immigration officials started to scrutinize requests for entry to determine whether refugee status was still merited. The changes in the Soviet Union meant that circumstances that previously qualified Soviet Jews as refugees might have changed. Immigration officials needed to assess whether individuals seeking entry to the United States still met the criteria for refugee status, considering the evolving situation in their home country. It is important to note that while the treatment of Jews in the Soviet Union improved, it did not necessarily mean that all Jewish immigrants were granted unrestricted entry into the United States. The process of evaluating refugee claims continued and individual cases were examined to determine eligibility for entry. Diaspora. Diaspora refers to the dispersion or scattering of a particular ethnic, cultural, or religious group from their original homeland to other parts of the world. The term is commonly used to describe the forced or voluntary migration of a group of people away from their ancestral or traditional homeland. For example, the elite of Jews from Palestine is an example of diaspora. Historically, diaspora has been a significant aspect of human history, with various communities experiencing dispersion for a variety of reasons, including economic, political, social, or religious factors. Some notable examples of diasporic communities include the Jewish diaspora, African diaspora, Indian diaspora, and Armenian diaspora. Diaspora communities often maintain a collective identity, cultural practices, traditions, and connections to their original homeland, even generations after the initial dispersal. They may have developed distinct cultural expressions and preserved their heritage through language, religion, cuisine, music, and other aspects of their culture. Diaspora communities play a vital role in shaping global cultures and fostering transnational connections. They often contribute to the social, economic, and cultural development of both their host countries and their countries of origin. Diaspora communities can serve as bridges between different cultures, promoting cultural exchange, trade, and diplomatic ties. However, being part of a diaspora can also present challenges and complexities. Diasporic communities may face issues related to identity, assimilation, discrimination, and maintaining connections with their ancestral homeland. They may grapple with questions of belonging, cultural adaptations, and negotiating multiple cultural identities. It is important to recognize that diaspora experiences are diverse, and the impact and significance of diaspora vary across different groups and contexts. The term diaspora is broad and encompasses a range of historical, cultural, and social phenomena related to the dispersal of specific communities. The Law of Return. The Law of Return, passed by the Knesset, Israel Parliament, in 1950, is the legislation that determines who is considered a Jew for the purpose of immigration and citizenship in Israel. According to the law, a Jew is defined as someone who was born to a Jewish mother or has converted to Judaism. It also includes individuals who have Jewish ancestry or are married to someone who is Jewish. The Law of Return grants Jews worldwide the right to immigrate to Israel and obtain Israeli citizenship. It reflects the principle of Jewish self-determination and is a key element of Israeli immigration policy. The law has facilitated the immigration and integration of millions of Jews from different parts of the world into Israel, contributing to the country's diverse Jewish population. Gender roles. Gender roles refer to the societal expectations, norms, and behaviors that are associated with being male or female. These roles can vary across different cultures and time periods and are often learned and internalized through socialization processes. Gender roles encompass a wide range of expectations, including behaviors, attitudes, and activities considered appropriate or typical for males and females. Gender roles accurately describes that they involve expectations regarding the proper behavior, attitudes, and activities associated with males and females. These expectations can encompass a variety of aspects such as appearance, mannerisms, career choices, family roles, and social interactions. Women's suffrage. Women's suffrage refers to the movement and fight for women's rights to vote in political elections and participate in the democratic process on equal terms with men. It is a significant social and political movement that aimed to achieve gender equality in political rights and representation. Historically, women had been excluded from voting in many societies and were denied the right to participate in political decision-making. The suffrage movement emerged in the 19th and early 20th centuries as women began organizing and advocating for their right to vote. Activists, known as suffragettes or suffragists, campaigned for legal and social reforms to expand women's political rights. The goals of the suffrage movement extended beyond the simple act of voting. It sought to challenge the prevailing gender norms and systemic discrimination against women, aiming for broader gender equality in all aspects of life. Suffragettes argued that women's voices and perspectives were essential for a fair and representative democracy. The suffrage movement faced significant opposition and encountered resistance from traditional societal norms and institutions. Women who fought for suffrage often faced social ostracism, ridicule, and even imprisonment. However, their determination and activism gradually gained momentum and brought about significant changes in many countries. The suffrage movement played a crucial role in advancing women's rights and paved the way for greater gender equality in many aspects of society. It marked a turning point in the struggle for women's empowerment and led to increased political participation and representation of women in democratic processes worldwide. Today, the legacy of the suffrage movement continues to inspire ongoing efforts to achieve gender equality and promote women's rights. The 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified in 1920, granted women the right to vote. It states, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." Before the 19th Amendment was passed, women in the United States faced significant barriers and discrimination in exercising their right to vote. The suffrage movement, which began in the mid-19th century, advocated for women's right to participate in the democratic process and have a say in the governance of the country. The ratification of the 19th Amendment marked a significant milestone in the fight for gender equality and expanded the voting rights of women. Right to vote. During the late 19th century, suffragists primarily worked to secure women the right to vote. The suffrage movement aimed to achieve political equality for women and fought for women's right to participate in the democratic process by casting their votes in elections. The right to vote was seen as a fundamental aspect of citizenship and a means for women to have a voice in shaping laws and policies that affected their lives. Suffragists organized protests, campaigns, and lobbying efforts to raise awareness and advocate for women's suffrage, leading to significant social and political changes in many countries. Feminism. Feminism is an ideology and social movement that advocates for the equal rights, opportunities, and representation of women. It seeks to challenge and dismantle the social, cultural, and political structures that perpetuate gender inequality and discrimination against women. Feminism promotes the belief that women should have the same rights and freedoms as men, including in areas such as education, employment, politics, reproductive rights, and social participation. Feminism encompasses a range of perspectives and approaches, but at its core it seeks to address the systemic oppression and marginalization of women and promote gender equality. Feminists work to challenge and change societal norms, stereotypes, and expectations that limit women's agency and perpetuate gender-based discrimination. They also advocate for the inclusion and amplification of women's voices and experiences in decision-making processes and strive for a more equitable and just society for all genders. Jewish identity. The basis of Jewish identity is primarily rooted in religion. Judaism is an ancient monotheistic religion that encompasses a set of beliefs, practices, and traditions. Jewish identity is often defined by adherence to Jewish religious teachings, observance of Jewish rituals and customs, and identification with the Jewish community. While Jewish identity can also encompass elements of culture, ethnicity, and nationality, religion serves as the core foundation. Jewish identity is not determined by race, as there are Jews of various racial backgrounds. It is also not solely based on nationality, as Jews can be found in different countries around the world. However, it is important to note that Jewish identity is diverse and can be experienced and expressed differently by individuals. Some individuals may identify strongly with the religious aspect of Judaism, while others may focus more on cultural or ethnic connections. Jewish identity can also be influenced by familial and community traditions, historical ties, and personal experiences. Overall, religion, specifically Judaism, forms the basis of Jewish identity, providing a common framework of beliefs and practices that unite individuals within the Jewish community. Anti-Semitism. Before the beginning of the Christian faith to the present time, anti-Semitism has followed the struggle of Jews. Anti-Semitism refers to the prejudice, discrimination, or hostility directed towards Jews based on their religion, ethnicity, or perceived ancestry. Throughout history, Jews have faced persecution and discrimination in various forms, often due to religious, cultural, or economic factors. The origins of anti-Semitism can be traced back to ancient times, predating the establishment of Christianity. The Jewish people faced hostility from different societies, including the Egyptians, Babylonians, Persians, and Greeks. However, the relationship between Jews and Christians has been particularly complex and has had a significant impact on the history of anti-Semitism. The struggle of Jews against anti-Semitism has spanned centuries, predating the Christian faith and continuing to the present time. The history of anti-Semitism is complex and influenced by a range of factors including religious conflicts, socioeconomic dynamics, and cultural prejudices.